It's so nice to be here, and it's always a pleasure, man. It's always a pleasure. I just got to be honest with you. It's always a pleasure. I wanted to just give me a sneak peek at last week's podcast because I wasn't able to make that. You don't have to give it up, but afterwards you texted me and you said, "Tro, we may be banned again." And so I was
You
like,
left us unchaperoned.
I was, I'm like, I'm just curious of, what is going on? Like what, you don't have to spill the beans completely, but
Well,
I would
people will
love to
probably hear
know.
that before this, but so basically, we just got he was doing a lot of research and looking at really what he was focusing on was like positive psychology, like how do you like get a team together, how did like instead of doing psychology for like okay your whole life sucks, how do we get you healthy again, he's like how do we keep people in a positive mindset and moving forward. But he said the more he got through looking at the studies, he's like there's so much BS out there. You start reading, he's like these are crazy studies. So ultimately he writes a paper on how they're doing a lot of studies on like DEI and some of these things. He's like some of these studies, he goes like they spent $3 million on how white microaggression causes black people to smoke more marijuana. And it's $3 million our government, our tax dollars paid for. And he goes, like 6 or 8 years later, zero studies, zero data. And he goes, what are we doing? And so he started looking at the fraud in the government, and he was actually working with Jay Bhattacharya, and then he gets ghosted. They're sending submissions and all that. Then he's like, no one's talking to me anymore. He goes, what's going on? Like, if I'm doing something wrong, let me know and I'll change it. He said it was just crazy. Like I'm answering to someone. And I don't know the whole story, obviously, but he was saying
Yeah.
that they gave him a whole list of stuff. Because what happened is they said we're going to cut all these crazy studies. But then what happened? He goes, I'm online, and you can see people saying, well, instead of using this word, use this word, and it won't flag it. And you can do all this crazy research stuff. So he started just going through study after study and looking at it and going, uh-oh, like, so of course we got into the data for the lockdowns and standing in circles 6 feet apart and all these fun things that we like to talk about that you know and so that was basically the gist of it, to hear his what he's doing going forward, and some of the people he's been in contact with and what they're doing as far as looking at research. And part of it's saying, as we talk about, and I'll tell you, man, Tro, and I'll give myself a plug here. If you want to listen to a mind-blowing interview, it's Life's Best Medicine I just did with a doctor, a five-time doctor, Jessica Rose. And she's not only talks about the science and the data, but she really talks about how corrupt the research community is. And you come up with a study, you could tell me better than I do. That's why I stay out of that part of medicine. But really, she was saying, like, you come up with a manuscript, you have to pay $3,000 to have them peer review it. You're
Yeah.
paying $3,000, and then they go, you know, uh, whoever, they don't know who's doing it, but there's tons of people who just do, like, this one person did like 300 anonymous letters to the editor saying you got to retract this study, and it's the same person. It's not like 300 different experts saying, hey, this is bad science. They go, it's not bad science, we just don't like what they're saying. And they go, it's kind of the same thing. It all goes one way. So if you're with the narrative, no one complains. If you go against it, you get 500 letters, and then the editors get scared, so they go, we don't want to have problems, we're going to take this down and we're going to put it under investigation. And she's like, here's all of our science, here's all of our data. And when you hear how this works, you go, can you trust the science? When they say trust the science, right, we knew the science was bad. Then 5 years later they go, yeah, I don't know if you just saw it, Tro, but it's just mind-blowing. I got attacked on social media for talking about natural immunity. If you already had the flu, you don't get the flu shot. Now Paul Offit, and I don't mind saying his name, he just said it, and I saw the recording of him saying, well, yeah, I knew about natural immunity, but I didn't want to say anything because I got outvoted, so we didn't say anything about natural immunity. But if you said it, you were a conspiracy theorist. But natural immunity, for people listening, the first description was 450 BC, when they had the bubonic plague. They had the black plague going around. And the guy goes, hey, you know what? If people got the plague once, they never get it again. And if they do, they don't get sick. So it's not this new theory that just came out. So that's the gist of what we've been talking about recently, Tro.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because people don't really understand what the peer review process is like. First of all, there's a certain, 80 to 90% of the publications out there are by a consortium of journals, meaning like 5 or 6 publishers. There's a lot of Taylor and Francis and Selvier, and they charge money to scientists like me to then go ask other scientists to, for free, review what I submitted. Right? It is I have to pay to publish my research, and then they ask me in turn to be a editor or a reviewer, and I have to go and take a look at the work of other people. And if I reject a paper, those people lose out $3,000. It's gone. If their paper was rejected, it's completely gone. So it's a bit of extortion. Now, I want to talk to you about I'm not going to tell you which publication, but a recent paper that I've published. One of the papers I published, we went through, a lot of authors came together, worked on it, and we published this in a pretty good journal. And the journal came back, and the reviewers were anonymous, by the way, which I understand, right? It's an anonymous review process. And the reviewers were so ignorant to the science, it was unbelievable. So we walked through, we educated them, we had to basically convince them of the science, show them the science. Then they finally accepted the paper. After the paper was accepted, they got letters together. And just for the listener to understand, a letter together is somebody who may not agree or somebody who may agree with that paper. And then they write a letter to the editor, and the editor brings it to the authors for a formal response. Okay? This journal decided to keep the letter to the editor completely confidential. They didn't want to disclose to us who wrote the letter, which is completely unorthodox. And their letter claimed that our authors, the 20-some-odd authors that were on this paper, had conflicts of interest. But we weren't able to actually see who those authors were if they had conflicts of interest. So
that's exactly the point. If you're anonymous, you could be paid and a lot of people have a lot of money, and they'll say, "Hey, we'll pay you to go." And there's people who don't. And exactly what she was saying. She goes, not even the peer review process. It's the post publication stuff. They get one person anonymously writes 200 letters, and they go, "Oh my gosh, we don't want to deal with this. We're just going to take the study down." Instead of looking at the study, going, "Here's our methods. Here's what we did. Here's the analysis. Here's and like the one that." The craziest thing is she said the one that was the problem was a paper that they used for one of their sources that they misquoted what the source said. And they go, what the person who's complaining totally misinterpreted what the paper actually does say. And so then you have to spend, I mean, just they do it just to tie you up, because the manpower it takes to review this, to write a response. It's like, it's just maddening. I don't want to deal with this anymore. So a lot of these people are saying, we're going to start doing it a different way. We'll pay people to review my paper that are known scientists that are credible. Like, we'll pay you to review it and find problems, because that's how it goes forward. Because if I made a mistake, like we all make mistakes, you go, if it's an honest mistake, correct me, and I'll look at it and go, you're right. We can use a different analysis maybe, or we can, maybe we have to include this data. But she goes, I like that if it's a person that's reasonable. When they do just total crazy stuff that make, like you said, they don't understand the science and they're correcting your science, like, you have no idea. But it's well worth listening to that episode just for that. There's a lot of other stuff too, I'll tell you, that's mind-blowing. But from that standpoint, when you hear, you go, gosh, how it worked and how much money, because like it's a $40 billion a year industry, the journals, right?
It's a huge industry.
So, if you look at medical journals, it's frustrating because you want to make a copy of an article that you like, but guess what? There's 5 ads in there. You have to like skip over pages so you don't have like just ads, right? It's ad after ad after ad for drug. And you go, okay, if you have a study that's negative for one of those drugs, that they're not going to be really happy to be paying money to be advertising in a magazine or a journal that's saying that what they're doing is wrong.
It is a bit of a racket, but unfortunately, like, this is the process we have. We don't have, another way to, go around it. And this is why, you and I were talking off the line about the SMHP and the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, and anybody out there who's a doctor or health coach should think about joining and becoming certified. But, this is why we we actually started our own journal. We have the Journal of Metabolic Health, right? Because we were so tired of facing this, and we still have a independent peer review process, an independent editor, an independent editorial team, but these are people who actually understand metabolic health. So when you go to publish a paper, it's with a true consortium of peers and not some peer reviewer who you have to educate. And the problem comes back to because those publishers are asking us to do it for free. I mean, I can't tell you, Brian, how many I just reject. I'm like, I don't reject the paper. I sign up not to be a peer reviewer because I'm not getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, you're just volunteering that, and they're making the money, and you're working for free. You go, wait a minute, like I don't, it's great. It's like owning McDonald's. You go, okay, we want all of our guys to work for free, and then we make the money. You go, wait a minute, I want to be paid for what I do. So that's part of it too. But I think part of it is these people. Some of them are being paid, but they're being paid by sources to not allow those to see the light of day. Right? That's the issue more than anything. I think is that some of these studies, if they threaten the status quo, because you think about it, like, as an example, I gave a talk in San Diego, and one of the guys goes, I have an in at the ADA. I want you to speak before the ADA. I started laughing. Oh, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Ain't no way gonna happen. Then he calls me. He was really working hard. He really wanted to make it happen. But they kept saying, well, if he doesn't work for a major corporation, or if he's not working for a major university, then we're not interested. And now what they're doing now is after the food pyramid flipped upside down, now they're saying, yeah, low carb keto is the way to go. Like, after fighting it all these years, you go, wow, this is wild. It's just crazy. Like, that's one thing we never thought we'd see, but it's just such a bizarre, and I think this, Tro, all of us, I think.
Can I talk
Oh
about
yeah,
that
go
for
ahead.
a second? I want to
Yes,
talk about this for a sec.
please do.
And I'm not going to say any names because it may not happen, but a very, very large medical organization contacted me, Brian. And I got to be honest with you, I'm not going to disclose who because nothing's finalized yet, and said, we made a mistake and we want to interview you. We want to come out to your practice. We want to show people what deep prescription is about. We want to show people. And at first I didn't know how to handle it, Brian. I was like, every part of me was like, I don't trust this, right? I don't trust this.
Yeah.
And I wonder if we're at that tipping point, Brian, where maybe we got to, go with open arms or not. I don't know. A very, very big, medical organization. So what should I do, Brian? You've always been my confidant, and
yeah,
you've guided me really well.
I mean,
They
trust
wanna
but
come.
verify. I mean, we have the data.
Yeah.
That's the thing is when we talk about stuff, we have the data. As they come after us, here's my data. I don't care. Like stuff I've been talking about lately is not popular, but you go, I'm seeing it nonetheless. So what do? I do 2 podcasts in a row with people. I go, here's what I'm seeing. You're the scientist. Explain why I'm seeing what I'm seeing. Instead of saying I'm not seeing what I'm seeing, because so many doctors, I'm telling you, like right now, it's just classic because they'll find it. It's one of those things. Like if you're out in the middle of nowhere, right, and you see someone dead in the road and you see tire tracks over them, you go, most likely they got hit by a car. But these doctors are saying, well, just because it's that, I mean, it could have been that they were skydiving, and it just happens that they're and they explain this whole thing away and go, is that like logical that it would possibly be that? Like it doesn't make sense. And so what you see is like and I mean, Peter McCullough and I had a great discussion about this. Like, how come people aren't looking? It's because they don't want to know. Because if I recommended something to you and then something bad happens to you, I don't want to know that it was me who did that. I don't want to know. I'll just say, man, you have bad luck, Tro, that you just got a atrial fibrillation out of nowhere. It's probably not the drug I just gave you last week. It's got to be something different.
I think they're also
Correlation
so
is not
used to-
causation, right?
I think they're so used to just discounting this, and it's hard. It's hard to take ownership. It's very hard to take ownership, and there's no way to prove it. But we have to consider it. This is life. Life is one big experiment. There is no study for the patient in front of you. There's not one study that you can point to that will tell you what to do with that patient. It's the best judgment from the best data you have, from the patterns you've seen, from your wisdom, your clinical experience, your interpretation of the data, right? This is medicine. Right?
That's what we do. And we go, how come it's not working for this one patient? Why? And that's when I started looking at this going, what else can it possibly be? I talk to experts like, how can this possibly be? If they eat zero sugar, how can they have high A1C and high insulin? How can they possibly be insulin resistant? And then you say, well, let me talk to William Davis, who says everything's coming from wheat. You go, how can we? I mean, and that's what I love about him. I asked him, like, Tro, we have to have him on here. I think I just reached out to him to come on, but I just interviewed him again.
We
I
got to
just love
hit
the guy.
him and McCullough. We got to get McCullough on too. You know, we got to talk to him about saturated fat. I think a little bit.
Yeah, that would be
You
fun.
know,
That would be a fun
yeah.
discussion. I don't know how well that would go over, but yeah, I think it would be a good time. But that's the thing too, is like
Just
some people will be
respectful.
right
That's
in
it.
one
You
area,
know.
doesn't mean they're right in everything. And
Yeah.
so we have maybe different clinical experience, and maybe we convince him by having a discussion, going, here's what we're seeing. So that
Right.
was the thing when I shared William Davis, all this crazy gut microbiome. Like, I'm finding when I fix the gut microbiome, the sugars get better. And guess what else, Tro? And I've researched and looked at it now. Did you know that chronic elevation of spike protein, right? COVID spike protein, chronic elevation causes insulin resistance, worsening, and it blocks the insulin receptors and causes all kinds of other issues. And you go, huh, maybe we have to factor that into what we're doing. So that's what I'm saying is like there's so much stuff we don't understand, but if you go, we know enough clinically to say, okay, if I cut out carbs, what should happen? Triglyceride triglycerides should drop like crazy. HDL should go up. LDL is a you don't know what it's gonna do. Like depends if you're gaining weight, losing weight, other factors, or if you have leaky gut, could cause high LDL by itself. So when you start seeing these things, you go, why am I seeing this? Like, how can it possibly be? And that's what I had to question. Is like, how can you be carnivore for 5 years and your A1C is 6.3 and your insulin 17? It doesn't
I'm
make either
I'm
what
gonna
we
tell you.
believe is
I'm
wrong or
gonna
there's
tell you
something else going
something.
on.
100%. You know, I thought to myself, what if the microbiome is making alcohol? What if the microbiome's making alcohol? Right? It's been documented.
It
Right?
ferments. That's what you do when you make wine.
Right?
Like,
What if the microbiome is making alcohol? It causes insulin resistance, raises A1C, independent of carbohydrates.
well,
Right? So
and you
there's
look at
all these
this.
things. Like, did you consider in every single one of those patients that I've had, Brian, fasting takes care of the issue. Almost everyone. I want to say 90%. Fasting. Prolonged fast.
Don't tell Jason Fung, man, he's gonna get a big head. But I see the same thing. If you fast, like all these things, because you're changing your gut microbiome, you're resting your gut microbiome a little bit. You're gonna have mitochondrial benefit. There's benefits, right? Mental clarity, less cravings, all those. I mean, I don't know everyone I talk to. If you fast for 36 hours, after that, you're not really hungry. You go, it's up here. You go, I should be eating. That looks good. But you go, am I really hungry? Like most people say, I'm not hungry and I'm clear and I feel good. But we go, oh, I don't want to have to fast again because mentally it's so hard. But I fast every Monday now, until Tuesday and go, okay, Sunday night we eat. Tuesday I'll eat something whenever I get to it type thing. But the more you do it, I mean, obviously it takes time to get adapted to that and all those things. But you're right. There's so much we're seeing that you go, Jason Fung has a point. And, William Davis actually, like, he's a good one for sure. Cause he actually goes, do you know Brian Cahill? I was like, is he a researcher? He goes, no, no, he was the Biggest Loser winner in like 2016. He goes, you know what he did after he left the show? I said, no. He goes, he worked out 2 hours a day and ate 1,000 calories a day. You know what happened to him in the next year? He gained all of his weight back plus some. You
Yeah.
go, oh my gosh, that is crazy, right? You look at it and go, how can that possibly be? He's working out 2 hours a day. None of us have time for that. And then William Davis goes, I work out 15 minutes a week and I feel great and he's in good shape. And you go, this is just, it's just so frustrating for people, right? When you hear those kind of things, you go, man, do we just screw up our metabolic rate permanently? Is it just, it's just a learning process. But again, so Tro, because it's so fun talking to someone like that. So I'm like, okay, let me understand your brain, doc. How did you go from putting stents in people's coronary vessels to looking at wheat causing issues? Like, how do you make this connection that the guts like has to do with heart disease? Like, they're totally unrelated, right? And he goes, well, Brian, I was putting stents in people with LDLs of 70, and it bothered me, and no one could give me an answer. And he asked the people, what do you do? Are you stressed? Do you smoke pot? Are you on cocaine? Like, why do you have coronary disease with an LDL of 70? And he said, the answer that kept coming back is wheat. They eat a lot of whole wheat. I eat whole wheat. I eat whole wheat toast. I eat my oatmeal every morning. I'm like, he goes, this doesn't make sense. So what does he do? Starts talking to people who are in functional medicine. He goes, how can wheat with zero fats and a bunch of fiber cause heart disease if it's a contributor? And these guys go, leaky gut. If they have gluten sensitivity, we don't use the right, we have GMO and all this stuff. So he starts looking and going, holy cow, all these people have leaky gut. That's how he makes the connection. And he goes,
Not
what
just
can
that.
leaky gut have to do with coronary disease, right? It's not about the LDL cholesterol, maybe. Maybe it's a contributor if you're metabolically sick. Maybe it is a contributor sometimes. Maybe sometimes it's not. So I think people I respect have this nuance going, how come in this person it's a problem? Right?
So there was that recent study, and I'm bringing it up because it showed a dysbiosis in the gut that caused
Troy, I can't
core.
believe we're having this
Yeah.
conversation, man. For how many years have we been? Have you like rolled your eyes when I go? Have
No,
you
I
go?
think
You
it
have
is a
that
big.
guest
I
on? Are
think
you
it is a.
kidding
I
me?
think it is a big eye roll. To be honest with you, right? It's a huge eye roll because the modulating it is not as easy as you have to test like what you're doing, which is, but we like way back when I think 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we talked about the seizure prevention from a
Yeah.
ketogenic diet comes from the microbiome. We talked to Sean O'Mara like 4 years ago, talking about Tanaka, the huge the sumo wrestler that it took his microbiome and transplanted it into mice and they got stronger, right? So we've talked about C. diff before, but I think how do you modulate it?
Well, we
Are you
do.
taking inulin? Are you taking are
It,
you gonna
yeah.
eat more fiber? Are you sure the right bacteria is gonna grow? Which bacteria is causing the problem? You know,
You
uh,
figure it if you look, like, really, if you don't look, you're not going to find it. And so one of the things you do is okay, let's just, like, you're having these. I don't check everyone. I go, but if it's weird, your triglycerides are high and you've been carnivore for 3 years, doesn't fit, right? When you see something that doesn't fit, you go, let's look farther and see. I'm sure there's a lot of other biochemistry, there's a lot of other stuff you can look at, but without exception, without exception, I'll say now, in my carnivores, if they do great at the beginning and they get worse with time, if we look at the gut microbiome, we're going to find an answer. So if the point is, I eat zero fiber, and some of these guys who make the mucus layer of the colon, who break down some of these endotoxins, if they're gone or they're starving and they start eating your mucus layer, you better look at that and say, well, maybe I just appease those guys. And do you get kicked out of the club if you have a scoop of inulin a couple times a week, maybe? And if your gut gets better, I'm telling you, so I've seen enough where I have a guy, I think I told you about him. I mean, these are anecdotes because I'm just an anecdotal doctor, but I have a guy, his A1C in 15 years hasn't been below 6.3. I've been working with him. He's been working out, fasting, cutting his carbs to zero, doing all this stuff, and can't get it below 6.3. And I go, let's look at your gut, man. And we look at his gut. He has dysbiosis. We put him on some stuff to fix it. Next time I check his A1C, it's 5.8. And I go, holy cow, are you eating, how many carbs are you eating? Do you cut your carbs down? He goes, I'm eating more carbs than I have in the last 15 years. I go, why are you eating more carbs? He said, because I'm watching my sugars and they're running in the 80s all the time. He goes, before I was 120, 115 all the time. So I'm like, okay, we'll take it. And I'm seeing him in next week and I can't wait to see his labs. But also, we have a lot of confounders. If your spike protein is really high, guess what? Your gut microbiome doesn't heal. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing people and I go, let's just check it for the heck of it. Oh, your spike protein's over 25,000 still. Let's try to treat it. Treat it. Gut gets better. So these guys all play a role. And that's why I love talking to different people like Sabine Hayes. And you go, what are you seeing in your gut? Guess what? She called it years ago, but no one listens yet. So I think all these things you have to, you're right. It's hard to modulate. But what I can tell you is stress isn't going to help your gut microbiome. There's anyone with IBS knows they get stressed and their gut gets worse. Drinking alcohol every day is not going to help your gut microbiome. Not getting out in the sun is not going to help. Being in the sauna, and these are crazy things, Tro. Like, this is one that came up. Anyone who listens to the podcast, it was surprising to me too. Peter McCullough and I had a good discussion because he is the guy who's treating myocarditis. He's watching. He's the resource center for people with myocarditis, and cardiac issues, right? That's what he does. And he goes, how come all the athletes, if the spike protein's an issue, how come they're not all dropping dead anymore? And I was like, well, they're not uptaking anymore. They're not getting the shots. And he goes, that's part of it. They figured that out. But if they don't die in the first few months, they sweat out through the mRNA sweats out through the sweat. You can detox. He goes, you have no natural way to break this down in your body. There's no enzyme in our body that breaks this down. So who do I talk to? PhD in virology, PhD in biochemistry, PhD, Dr. Rose. And she started laughing. And I go, oh, he's wrong. And then she goes, I'm surprised he knows that. That's absolutely correct. You can sweat out the modified messenger RNA in your sweat. So guess what? Exercise, going in the sauna, all these things that we know are helpful that help the gut microbiome also help detox this, right? And so you look and you go, man, there's a lot of stuff we just know is good for us, right? So talking to experts and Sabine Hazenson, you can detox stuff through your gut. That's where your gut is huge for autoimmune disease. And so it's not the end all be all, like you're saying, but you go, okay, if it's contributing, if I'm starving myself and I'm still, my sugars are still high, maybe I should look at that. Right. Sorry, I had to put my phone.
100%. If things don't add up, I think that's the time to dig deeper. So that 2025 study, I was just looking it up, was a study in Nature that looked at the microbiome taking histidine and breaking it down to imidazole propionate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
IMP. It's a disaster, right?
Yeah, and that was very, certain species, Prevotella, Clostridium, Enterococcus, E. coli, and Ruminacus. I haven't even heard of Ruminacus. And very interesting. Basically, this disrupts endothelium. It suppresses nitric oxide, and it accelerates atherosclerosis independent of cholesterol. Like
Exactly.
completely independent of cholesterol.
So
And
this
what are the
comes back.
drivers?
This comes
Yeah, yeah.
back, Tro, to what we're talking about. If you're metabolically sick, your gut's going to be a mess. If your gut's a mess, you're going to have leaky gut. And this IMP is I important. It's important because it goes across and it causes atherosclerosis. So if they take this out and they go, maybe it's just a bystander. They inject this into mice, they all get atherosclerosis with normal sugar, normal insulin, all these things. So if we're seeing coronary disease, this is why I go, okay, you can't just say, I'm a lean mass hyperresponder, so I'm fine. What happens if you're a lean mass hyperresponder with a bad gut? Then what happens to your cardiac risk if this is the problem? Is it you know? But then you get to go, well, these carnivores are eating more steak and they're getting, that's why these are happening. Go, once if it's the gut and we just fix that, you go, that's what I mean is we have to have an open mind to say, if every single person who goes on carnivore diet does great, like Sean Baker, I'm not going to argue with you. But if you are that person, so when I gave that talk in San Diego, I wasn't really excited about doing because I knew I was going to take heat. But I had 15 people after that talk come up to me and go, I'm an outlier. I'm an outlier. I'm an outlier. I'm an
Oh,
outlier.
I've seen it again and again. The only thing that I've seen to address this in my clinical practice, and maybe you see giving inulin or doing fermented carbohydrates may reconstitute, is fasting. Is just fasting.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at what are the causes of the highest flux of histidine, which the bacteria uses then to make IMP. Basically, refined carbohydrates, white bread, rice flour, ultra processed grain snacks, added sugars, and alcohol,
Hmm.
right? And basically, fiber imbalance, low inulin sources. That's a what are the sources of inulin in the diet, Brian? How do
Yeah.
you get
There's not
in?
very, and you can we can look across the board. And this is why I really start looking at it because all of us keto people are like butyrate. You need butyrate, beta hydroxy butyrate. Those are ketones. Where's butyrate come from? Butter. That's it. That's the main food source. And it's minuscule. Where's your best source of butyrate? Give some inulin to your lactobacillus and these other guys and let them make it. Akkermansia, they make it for you. So they're going to make huge numbers because guess what? You have to get everything by the stomach acid. That is the issue. So, like William Davis has all these different yogurts that have good bacteria. So if you have C. diff colitis, it's not the issue is that you're lacking your good bacteria, right? If you have enough good people in your neighborhood, the gang members don't take over anymore because you stand up and go, you can't run the neighborhood anymore. We're done with you, right? But if everyone's hiding, the gangs run in El Salvador as an example, they ran everything for a while, and then they came out and said, you guys are done. So that's like the gut microbiome is like a society. And not only that, acetic acid, so many of us talk about yeah, that's a short chain fatty acids, acetic acid, right? So acetic acid, butyrate, propionate are the three main ones that we have. Not great food sources, but the food source really that's going to help that is inulin, which comes from chicory, it comes from asparagus, it comes from garlic, and so different that you go, okay, if I starve those guys too much, what are they going to do? They're going to eat the mucus layer that they were making for us. Akkermansia, if you look at diabetics, type 2, generally akkermansia is super low. And so they have leaky gut. And so if you look, they have, and even if you don't do any of that, even if you're, well, I wouldn't say you're keto necessarily, but I'm saying if you're doing like gluten and you have gluten sensitivity, you're going to have leaky gut inflammation, increased risk of cardiovascular. So you could go your whole life and just eat whole wheat and die of a heart attack. with never eating fat, right? As we know, you could eat a ton of carbohydrates, never have a drop of fat, and have high LDL cholesterol and high triglycerides and dysbiosis, and you're feeding all these bad guys. So maybe it all comes back to that, Tro. I mean, that's why, like, the thing that fascinated me is talking about the seizure disorder. That was surprising. I had her repeat it to make sure at the Charlie Foundation when she goes, yeah, these kids do keto for a year or two, and then they're not in ketosis anymore and they don't have seizures. Why? Maybe those ketones healed the gut lining. Maybe that's part of what we see the benefit in our patients, and cognitive benefits. We're talking about dementia, Parkinson's. And so no matter what, it all comes back to metabolic disease, right? So anything with chronic inflammation, anything that causes dysbiosis in our gut is not going to be good. So, picking our poison, does that mean we should never drink again? It's like, you want to enjoy life and have a drink every once in a while. I've been dry for a month, by the way, Tro. Almost a month. So anyways, like, you
You
go,
never
yeah,
struck me as somebody who drank regularly.
no,
Maybe,
I'm not a heavy
maybe.
drinker, but if I have friends come over and they open a bottle of wine, you have a glass of wine here and there, you get whatever, you go see your friend in San Diego and he goes, hey, we haven't seen it for a while. Let's have a beer. Okay, I'm not eating the keto. I mean, not eating the happy hour food, but I'll have a beer with you. So yeah, but it catches up with me very quickly. So I realize, okay, cut it out. It's not good. Is it? Is there a benefit other than social? There's really not a benefit. Alcohol is a toxin, and those of us in ketosis, it knocks you out of ketosis like nothing else, really. And so if I'm skipping the Twinkies, but I'm gonna have beers, it's not very helpful, right? I'm not eating bread, but I'll have the yeast and all the other. So yeah, it's a trade-off because there's a lot of, Toro, there's a lot of people who are doing keto. I'm doing strict keto. You're having 3 glasses of wine at night. That's gonna have an effect over time,
Yeah,
right? So
I drink like a handful of times a year. Just a handful of times. I keep it to an absolute minimum. I just don't feel good. I don't feel good on it at all. And the next day, I don't feel good. It's. But I think, Brian, to give you credit, you're definitely onto something with the microbiome. And I've been doing a lot more of the GI map testing, a lot more of the, the markers of sort of, fecal calprotectin, lactoferrin, looking at, fecal leukocytes, doing a lot of stool ovum parasites, doing a lot of zonulin testing, and it's definitely a learning curve. And there's nowhere to learn this. That's the worst part. There's not like a,
well, there is.
great.
I mean, that's why I go. That's why it's crazy. Like even Dave Feldman said it to me, and then my patient texted me, goes, Dave Feldman's talking about the gut microbiome now. But when I talked about it, then because I go, look, it plays a role. It's a factor. But they go, well, there's not enough research. I'm like, I spent months looking at research, month after month, and you look at this research, and you go, holy cow, this is wild. Not what I'm getting at is just because people don't know about it doesn't mean it's not there. Because if you
Yeah,
start
yeah.
looking at, okay, what's the role of I mean, there's so many studies, novel treatment of coronary disease, gut microbiome issues. Like if this is low, you're more likely to have this problem. If just like that's like we talked about the
Well,
IMP.
well, when that study came out with IMP, the first thing I did was any interventional styles looking at like IMP production or looking at the gut microbiome, like the top three. And there's no interventional study showing a decreased production or a decrease in those species, right? So then you have to go to observational studies, and then I
Well, the
feel
thing you
like,
have to, yeah, but what you have to look at is this. You go, okay, what's the mechanism of action? So for instance, I'll just tell you my story. Like, I had 2 years of hell when I first went keto, actually. I started losing weight, things are good, and all of a sudden I'm getting hives. Like, what the hell is this? I don't have hives. I'm not allergic to anything. Hives, hives, hives. Lip swells up. I go, oh, it's gonna happen. My lip would swell up. My whole face was like a car. Did I ever show you those pictures?
yeah, yeah, I know.
It's crazy. I've shown them at conferences because I was like, what the heck is going on? Is this, and maybe I'm allergic to ketones? Maybe because you have to say what is happening. I was fine. Now I'm a disaster. So it turned out ultimately I had mold toxicity from my office. There was a bunch of mold up above my head sitting there. But just listening to people on podcasts and someone goes, hey, someone asks an expert on gut microbiome, says, hey, when do you think about parasites? And he goes, oh, anyone who has autoimmune disease for sure, no question. As a matter of fact, I just posted something about a month and a half ago. I said, anyone in functional medicines who's looking at the gut, has anyone seen a patient with autoimmune disease that has a normal gut? And all these people, 41 years, never seen it. 12 years, never seen it. I didn't have people going, yo, I see it all the time. I didn't see one person respond that way because I haven't seen it personally myself. So I go, huh. So if I see someone with lupus or autoimmune disease, first thing I'm thinking is gut. right? If you're diabetic, do you have an increased risk of autoimmune disease? Do you have an increased risk of Alzheimer's disease? Do you have an increased risk of, it's all comes back to metabolic function, right? So, sorry, I went on a tangent. I lost the original question, Tro. It's
No,
my
we're talking
age.
about, like I was looking at, you were talking about
Oh,
your gut,
yeah. So then when you look at it and you go, okay, what does acromantia do? It maintains the gut lining. So if you do have IMP, but you have a good gut lining, what's your chance of that leaking across? Pretty much zero. What do? Poop it out. Who cares? No harm, no foul. So if you have leaky gut, that IMP leaks across. Now it gets to the vasculature. Now it causes problems. So when you start thinking in those terms, you go, what does lactobacillus do? Oh, guess what? It detoxes antihistamines. Guess what? A lot of people with histamine reactions, they're lacking lactobacillus in these 3 or 4 that break that down in the gut. So you break it down before you absorb it into your bloodstream. Why absorb toxins if you don't have to? Doesn't make sense. So you go, maybe I should look at that. If I'm carnivore and all of a sudden I'm starting to get hives, and I've seen it. I've seen people with multiple food sensitivities. They go, I'm allergic to all these foods. I can't eat them. And then 6 months later, they go, I'm eating all these foods. I'm fine. Why? Well, we talk about lectins. Like there's some great lectures on lectins. If you have a normal mucus layer of your colon and a normal gut microbiome, you don't have problems with lectins. It would be a 1 in a billion chance you have a problem with a lectin. So you avoid a whole class of foods because you're worried about lectins. Fix your gut, and then these lectins don't bug you anymore, right? And I have tons of clinical experience. People say, "Oh, I can never eat asparagus before. Now I eat asparagus all the time. I don't get rashes or hives, or my face doesn't swell up." But it's all these things you have to. And the reason I'm biased this way because I personally experienced it. I was on prednisone for 2 years, right, just to be able to work. Because I would have hives and you can't go into with your eyes swollen shut and see patients. So I had no choice until I figured out, oh, guess what? I killed off the parasite. I got rid of the mold. I did a mold detox, all this fancy functional stuff. But what I can tell you is I haven't had a hive in 6 years. I was having it every single day of my life,
I
like
remember
Job.
those pictures that you sent me with your like your face was huge.
I mean, it was
You
totally
know,
it was
it was like
ridiculous. Like,
it looked like angioedema.
oh
I
yeah,
remember,
totally. And I got checked
where
for that because I'm like, I
yeah.
don't. My wife was like, "Shoot, Epi, you're gonna die." I'm like, my airway's open. I look like hell. But there's so many people that experience that. So when you see it now, I go, oh, I know what this is. I've seen this before. It's not histamine because these guys break down histamines in the gut too. So if your gut's screwed up, you're gonna have a histamine problem. Guess what? Some of those guys break down uric acid. So a lot of people have bad uric acid. It can go back to the gut, right? So all these could be a contributor rather than taking allopurinol. Maybe you fix your gut and you don't have to take allopurinol because you're not absorbing all these toxins into your body. So we have to look at that and at least say, maybe it is, maybe it's not, maybe it's not in your case. But a vast majority of people, when they're having weird stuff, we can figure out if we look enough and go, you're having, Tro, I'm telling you, we'll talk offline, but I'm telling you, I've had people have like miracle improvements by taking out some of these toxins, like miracles. Like you look and you go, wow, like they're never going to leave me as a patient. I haven't changed the lady's tire yesterday, Tro, because I'm a DPC. I had time, and like poor lady's there, she has a flat tire. I'm like, I got 15 minutes. I think I can do it. Let's do it. I just changed my tire a few weeks ago. I could probably get a personal best. So we changed her tire, and I had three new patients call me yesterday. Go, is that true that you asked my wife? Did you change her tire? Really? She told us you changed her tire after her appointment. I'm like, my wife's like, yeah, he did. So
I was looking at the just jiving with what you were saying. The most linked organism was the Privitella species that made the IMP. And I just said, okay, like let's figure out the highest amount of data regarding interventional trials that have been shown to decrease just that particular species. And lo and behold, carbohydrate restriction has been shown to potently reduce it.
Bingo. Yeah.
Ramadan fasting has been shown to
decrease Prevotella.
Yeah, to
so Jason Fung is right again. Fasting fixes Prevotella. If that's what's causing your heart disease and you fast, well, maybe that's why we're seeing benefit.
Interesting. High protein, right, increases the histidine. So there's something to be said. They're saying that this branched chain amino acids, right, like high amino acid loads increase histidine and make these things thrive. So if you're doing, like, let's say a high protein carnivore, maybe you could be driving it in the wrong direction. If you're doing a mixed diet, it's very interesting. It's like we got to test. There's no way to know without testing.
I think the more what I think, Tro, because there's a lot of people who are quote carnivore, but they're carnivore, but they're going to the birthday party, they're gonna have different desserts or fruits or
They
vegetables or
may
whatever.
be just setting themselves up to just
No, they
keep.
may be helping
Yeah.
themselves. And the people who are more having a problem are super strict. Go, that's it. I'm not eating anything but that. That's it.
Yeah,
Nothing
but
else.
then fast. Then fast,
Then fast.
right?
But I think fasting, I think it does benefit you. But I think why not add a scoop of inulin here and there and just feed the gut microbiome? Let that, like we all know, Tro, what causes C. diff colitis?
Antibiotics. Yeah.
Antibiotics.
Yeah.
Why they
Yeah.
why? Why does antibiotics cause C. diff colitis?
Yeah, because they get rid of the police officers.
You
That's
get
why.
rid of all the good people, all the firemen start dying off, and all the police officers dying, and then you start getting riots in the streets. So you go, okay, why don't we just take care of the police officers and the firemen and keep them there? Give them a little
It
inulin, make
makes
them
look, it
happy.
makes sense, but there was an interesting study, Brian. I totally get it, right? But what I'm saying is, a lot of bad things happen with good ideas, right? And
Totally.
this is where I stand. And this is why it's so tough for me to go somewhere new. It's not because I don't think there's something to be said. I think for years I've known the microbiome is a powerful sort of thing. But there was a study I just looked at with microplastics. I don't know if you saw the study or not. It was, and I posted it on X. It was looking at microplastics in water bottles, and they looked at glass bottles and they looked at plastic bottles, and the idea was how much more microplastics are in these plastic bottles. That was the purpose of the study. And they did the study, they looked at the microplastics, and all of a sudden it's like 10 times more in the glass bottle. 10 times more
Mm,
in the glass bottle. And you know where it came from? Did you know about the study?
no.
It was the cap. So the metal caps are painted, right? And when they crimp the caps and are doing the caps, because they paint the inside and outside, that little bit of paint from the abrasion and the crimping and the moving and opening these, it's the microplastics from the paint were getting into the water. So you have this thing where we all know, okay, these microplastics are terrible. They're depositing in our organs, our testes, our brain, our hearts, right? And then you go to do something about it, and it makes sense. It's like it's a glass bottle. Of course, it's going to be better than the plastic bottle, but it was the complete opposite. And this is why I'm hoping, for more interventional trials. Like
But
let's
also,
let's get those people and test give them
and even
inulin.
with that, there's certain gut microbiome that will digest plastic. There's certain, like in Asian cultures, they have a gut microbiome that will help digest seaweed. We don't have that. So maybe that's why some people can eat their cultural food and they do fine, and we go there and we get all jacked up. So there's so much of that when you start looking, you go, and the other thing I know, Tro, that's very encouraging to me, because when I heard both Peter McCullough and Jessica Rose say the same thing, they said there's no way to break this spike protein. This modified messenger RNA cannot be broken down by the human body. They both are saying it. You can sweat it out through your sweat by working out, exercising, doing what we're saying. But then, my hope is like Exxon Valdez, when these big, huge oil spills happen, like within a few years, everything goes back to normal somehow, because the earth is so good at saying, okay, there's too much. Let's digest it with this algae. Let's use this. And some other one animal uses this byproduct and all this stuff. All of a sudden you cleaned it up. And I think our body hopefully will say, you know what, this thing's sitting around here the last 6 years. We got to do something with it. And let's adjust something. Make an enzyme I mean, I don't know. It's just, I know we have a miraculous body, but this is something that we've never seen before. So you go, I'll sit in the sauna a couple times a week. Even if they're wrong, I'm going to do that. I don't care. The risk and benefit is very nice, and I can sit and relax and breathe and calm my nervous system down maybe. But all these things that we're talking about, Troy, but you're right. You could see how all these things you go, maybe, just maybe the mechanism of why the low carb ketogenic diet is it has a big role in the gut microbiome. So can interventional studies by taking a certain drug or not taking it, no, but we know. I mean, there's certain things that you got, again, going back, you go, okay, why is the Mediterranean diet so popular? Why does it work in the Mediterranean? Well, because they have a Mediterranean lifestyle. They chill. They're not eating the microplastics. They're like living off the land. They're growing their own stuff. They go, too windy, not working today. I'm not going to go sailing. Oh, let's hang out. Can I help you fix your yard? Having that, all these things we talked about over the years, and when you see it, I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of times they'll say, my dad lived to be 80. Like, I just talked to one of my patients, and she's a high stressor, and she goes, my dad. I go, you're like your dad in a way. Like, if you have his genes, you're good. She goes, you know what I don't have of his? Nothing bothered him. He lived to be like
Yeah.
90. she said, he was a high functioning attorney, like really well respected in the community. But she said, I worry about everything. My dad would be like, oh well, you know, my dad's like that. He smoked and drank until he's in his mid 80s now. You go, there's no way he should have lived this long. But part of it is like, doesn't hold a grudge, doesn't get upset with people. Does that affect your gut microbiome? Yeah. Does it affect your catecholamine response and all these things? So that's why I don't fight with people on Twitter. I see stupid stuff and I go, okay, I'm not gonna let you kill me early. I want to spend time with my wife and kids. I don't want to deal with arguing with some guy who has 90 followers that knows more science than Tim Noakes. I'm not going to argue with you, dude. Okay, you're right, whatever. It's all these kind of things where you start seeing, like, we observe who has longevity and who doesn't, right?
Yeah, we know who's been right a lot more than they've been wrong too. I mean, the receipts are all there. Tim Noakes, Gary Fedke, Jason Fung. We just and honestly, Brian, you and I, like we've been right, and the receipts are all there. So it's
Who would have
I
bet at
think
the beginning of this podcast we'd be talking about metabolic mind and what Chris Palmer's
yeah,
doing, and Georgia Ede, and all these people, what they're doing from cancer research, uh, uh, Alzheimer's research, Melanie Tidman, like doing stuff with Parkinson's that are miraculous work. And you go, it all comes back to metabolic health.
yep,
So throwing all the drugs at something in the world is not going to fix metabolic health. There may be things that assist. You could argue that GLP-1, sorry, I get excited. The GLP-1s, you can say, yeah, there's benefits or something, but is it going to benefit you if you take a GLP-1 and you eat crappy food and you're stressed out and you drink, smoke pot every night and you're drinking a gallon of Jack Daniels a week? We have to look at that and go, really? You know, enjoying life, having fun, like us, going to Alaska together and chilling a little bit, even though,
oh man, what a great time that was,
yeah, I
Brian. You're
can't go
bringing
this
back
year. I
good
gotta work,
memories.
man.
You know,
But
I feel you.
yeah.
I feel you.
So Tro, tell me the highlights of Boca now that we're getting philosophical. We have a couple minutes
It was
left.
it was great. It was on cardiac disease prevention.
Was there anything you
We
learned that you go, wow, this is new information?
Yeah, I mean Arthur Agassiz talked a lot. Like Arthur Agassiz talked about volume and density, and
Did he have like
you know,
3,000 slides?
yeah, of course he always does. And
Because he loves it.
everybody,
And people listening, Arthur Agassiz, he was the South Beach diet guy. He's like Ben Bakikio. These guys are just the real deal. Like you could just sit down and there's no pretense, super nice people. And just like you wouldn't expect him to be like, he's the Agassiz scorer on the coronary calcium score. That's him. And you go, wow, he's a cool guy too. And he's been around a few years.
he certainly has. It was just great. We had several posters were up. Our poster was up on diabetes remission. Which Dr. Laura and Dr. Matt Calkins worked a lot on.
What did you talk about,
Um,
man? I'm gonna listen to the recordings.
yeah, you got to wait and see. You got to go. You got to get the recordings to see. It's about plaque reversal. It's about all the evidence regarding the most commonly used modalities to reverse plaque. So
Oh man.
yeah, and we presented unpublished data. So we're going to publish this data on our cohort of 120 consecutive patients in our practice. So, and how we reduced their cardiovascular disease. It was awesome. Rob Sivas gave a great talk. Phil Ovadia, Lily Johnston. It was just awesome. I had to leave before Eugene Chung gave a talk. He's a sports medicine doctor, a cardiologist who's just amazing. That's one thing I'm going to catch on the replay. So if you're all hearing this, and Jack, maybe put the way that everybody can get the CME in the show notes, so that they can also, if you're a doctor or dietitian or nurse out there, you're going to need these are AMA PR1 CME, and the reason why we have that is because of Dr. Matt Calkins and Doug Reynolds, who really put a lot into making sure
Yeah, it's a
that
lot. It's a
we're up
lot
to
of
date.
effort, man. Doug has done such great work, and his vision. Like, you think about it, like, this is hilarious. When I saw the first thing I thought when I saw the new food pyramid, I'm like, that's Doug's food pyramid. They stole it. That's like a copyright infringement. He had it upside down for how long? Since I've known him, since like eight
Yeah.
years, 12 years, something crazy. And you go, wow, like, it's like, who would think these things, Tro? Like, really well, like, even you and I mean, I was a skeptic for sure, and I'm pretty open-minded. I was like, there's no way it's going to happen. There's no way. And then to see the steak on the very top left corner for Sean Baker, I was like, wow, that is shocking. It is.
I think it's a testament to all the people who were part of it. If you look at the HHS, we've got to give credit to them. The leadership of certainly Doug Reynolds at Low Carb USA and the SMHP. I think I wouldn't discount the people in this room right now, Brian, like us, constantly pushing the boundaries and reaching out and being vocal.
Yeah.
Nina Teicholz. I have to just say, Nina Teicholz. I don't think we would have had the guidelines
She's
we
a
had
warrior,
without her.
man. Nina, and
Jan
then
Ellison, Jan Ellison
Jen Ellison.
Bazooki,
Yeah, yeah.
absolute like warrior out there who's
Ben
just,
Bickman.
Ben Bickman, who's on the Jeff
Yeah.
Folick, who's on the guidelines committee, Ty Beal, who we have to get on the podcast. I mean, it's what a blessing, And gosh, Brian, the HHS and the White House retweeted me. They quoted my tweet, of all things. So it's a momentous time to be a part of the metabolic health movement and making America healthy. But
Yeah, and
the
for people
real
who
work,
supported us.
the real work is now. Yeah, and we have
Yeah.
to thank the real work is now. We got to go out to the schools. We got to go out to the hospitals. Doug and I have to work to get every
Medical
single thought
schools.
leader to talk in every single medical school, which is now required to have nutrition and metabolic health training. So we need to go out there to the schools feeding our kids, make sure they change the foods, make sure they change the pyramids. I mean, there's so much work to do still, and yeah, thanks to
Yeah, and if
everybody
ADA,
who's
if you want me
listening
to come
this.
talk, I'd be glad to do it. Just invite me. I'll be there. I'd
Who
be
did you
glad to
say?
come
Who
join
did you
you.
say? Yeah, we'll
The
see.
ADA, if they want to invite me now.
Yeah, we may be able to arrange something like that, Brian.
But
Just
honestly,
wait.
Tro, I'll tell you, the reason we started this podcast is we saw the standard of care was horrific for diabetes, right? I was thinking about this morning when I woke up. I thought, when's the last time I saw a diabetic foot ulcer? When's the last time I had a patient go to dialysis? When's the last time I had a patient have a bypass surgery? I can't remember, Tro. It was back before 2020 for sure, before I left my old practice, right? I mean, it was this dates way back, and like my whole life was Una boots and like fixing stuff. And you go, this is horrific, man. I don't want my patients going through this. And so to see the prevention we can do now, and we're saving the system, we're saving Medicare, we're helping like that. This has to get and that's why we start the podcast saying we're going to put our necks out, but what we will do if someone comes after us, we will have had by the time they come after us at least 150 doctors saying that they're doing the same thing with the same results as not just us talking BS over here. So when we had that changes the standard of care. All these people, Chris Palmer, we had on early on, we had a lot of people on that were at the time we were questionable. Like, are these guys like, let's talk to Chris Palmer. Like, he's treating schizophrenia. Like, we both were like, let's talk to this guy and see what he's saying. Then when he explains the science and what he's doing and his clinical experience, you go, wow, this is something, right? Because we saw depression, anxiety getting better. That's no big deal to us anymore. That's just expected. So but it's amazing how much things have changed over the last 5 years. You know,
Yeah, I mean, and we're lucky, Brian. We're lucky that and I remember, like 2018 when you're like, Tro, maybe they'll ask us to come around and talk once they see what we've seen. Maybe they'll come ask us to give lectures, and gosh, we have that from your mouth to God's ears. Brian, thank you so much for today. Thanks for
yeah.
making
Thank you,
this
man.
happen.
It worked out great. Thanks, Tro. We're
Yeah,
having a
and
good
thank
time,
you.
and I'm
Yeah,
learning a lot from you. And I just want to thank you publicly again. I don't know if I would still be practicing medicine if I didn't go to direct primary care. I would have burned out. I was getting to that point. I was looking, going, you know what? There has to be a better way to help people. I knew our podcast was going to reach people, but just really when I when I get home at night and I'm calm and I'm not stressed out and I have time to sit with patients and explain things and joke and have a good time. That's why I wanted the medicine for. And I feel bad for the docs who aren't, but I thank you for saying, Brian, what the hell are you doing, man?
yeah.
Get
Hopefully
out,
they
get
come
out,
and
get
join
out.
us now. Yeah, let them like as our numbers increase, we're gonna hire the next round of docs. We're like they need a life beyond the insurance occurrence based garbage that most people deal with. So hopefully, we can just keep doing better and better for people, and they understand the value and the service we bring, and we have a whole generation of docs to grow. So I'm excited for the next round, man. This first round we just I know like it hasn't been easy though, Brian. I must say it's like there's been some challenges along the way. I'm just thankful that people have trusted us along the way.
Well, I think
I'm
I
so
just posted something
thankful.
about it yesterday and I was happy with my post because I said, you know what? You know, when you stand against the narrative and you stand up and you trust your clinical instincts, what you're seeing in clinic, your medical training, uh, you go through that and you're called a quack, you're called a grandma killer, you're called dangerous conspiracy theory. And then you go through all this stuff, and then 5 years later, when you're vindicated, they all say, just move on. We're not going to talk about that anymore. But you have the satisfaction of you don't really need their recognition. All you do is like help the patient in front of you. And we have patients come in and go, I couldn't eat anything before. I was miserable. I was hostage of food. I was, if you told me not to eat bread, I would cry. And they're like, my life's so much better. You see people's joints not hurting and their mood's better and their relations, all these things that we see across the board. You go, man, I always say it's like a country song backwards. I have patients and you go, like a country song when you lose your wife and your house and you get thrown in jail and all this stuff, but it goes backwards where your life gets better. And to be a part of that, man, there's no better reward. I make less money now than I did in 2019, even though people say I'm a grifter somehow, right? I don't have any money involved in any of the stuff I recommend to people, but you have that job satisfaction and it's better than making a lot of money and being miserable and not helping people. Like that's kind of the road I was on, and to be able to help people every day and give them reassurances. That's and I owe a lot of that to you, Tro, because you're like, get out, man, you're gonna die. And I didn't see a way out because it's scary to jump out of the system. But I don't know any doctor who went direct primary care now that they're not smiling and happy and want to welcome the next person in.
Yeah, we're blessed, man. We're blessed. Um, yeah, absolutely. Got to thank you. Thank the listeners. Thank the Patreon supporters. Thank our patients. Thank everybody who supported us, retweeted us, liked us,
Put
and
up with
stayed with
us.
us when we were censored and banned. So we appreciate you all, and Brian, I appreciate you.
All right, blessings, man. I'm glad we got to do this. Good catching up with you, man.
That's great, man.
Back to work,
That's
man. Thanks,
great.
bro. Yeah,
Yeah.
Tro, if you have a chance, listen to that Jessica Rose. You're going to shit.